The Journey to Becoming podcast is all about the changes, transitions, and transformations we encounter on our journey to aligning with purpose and living life with intentionality, fulfillment, and impact. I'm your host, Sabine Gideon, and my mission is to help those starting their entrepreneurial journeys or simply shifting gears to better align with purpose by sharing the journeys of others, offering practical tips and strategies, and providing encouragement to help you pull through whatever obstacle is standing in your way. So I invite you to sit back, relax, and join me on this journey of discovery.
Joining me today on the Journey to Becoming podcast is Jacquie Elliott. Jacquie is a certified life, spiritual, and relationship coach and motivational speaker on a variety of subjects, from setting loving boundaries to abusive brain chatter and taming the bully within. As a regular guest last year on The Point, a community affairs show in Central Oregon, she helped people learn to pivot through the COVID crisis. Her book on the ABCs of abusive brain chatter and 32 excuses people make to not change our life are expected to be published in 2022. Welcome to the show, Jacquie. So excited to have you.
Oh, it's so great to be here, Sabine. Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. I want to dig into this abusive brain chatter as we had been talking about prior to actually recording. But before we do so, I would love to learn a little bit more about you and about your journey and what led you down the path of becoming a coach and, uncovering or wanting to work through this abusive brain chatter.
Wow. Well, like most people, I hit a bottom. I'm 69 years old now. And when I was 42 years old, I absolutely hit my bottom. My life was completely unmanageable. And I shared this in a talk that I was laying on the bed, watching TV, eating a box of frosted mini wheats, remote control in one hand, asthma inhaler in the other hand. My life was completely out of control and I couldn't breathe any longer. And the abusive brain chatter was so loud. It was telling me things like, well, you're never going to get married again. You're a horrible mother. And that was always just a horrible thing for my abusive brain chatter to say. And it would say things like, you're never going to earn enough money to support yourself. So it really kept me in fear and it kept me from moving forward. So that day, it was like, I literally got down on my knees and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't abuse myself anymore. I need help. I was 42 and I asked could I live the second half of my life, the next 42 years, like I've lived the first half? And the answer was no. And I knew that if I didn't make a change, I was just going to either, just end up either dying or just in this horrible abyss for the rest of my life. And, I had a lot of therapy. I had a lot of counseling, a lot of therapy, a lot of programs like that. But I just sensed that what was missing and what I needed was some kind of a spiritual help. I always say I couldn't fix my brain with my brain. I just couldn't do it. And I needed to find a power, some kind of power greater than me to help me, to guide me. And that's what I did. That moment, I just got down on the ground and I said, I can't do this anymore. Please help me. Mm-hmm. And I know, a lot of people, I don't always share this with a lot of people, but it felt like a spiritual experience for me at that moment because a voice just so loud and clear. So, just said, get up, take yourself, get help and get support. And that moment I got up, I got dressed. Of course, it was midday. I was probably still in my pajamas like I usually was, right? And I got to a 12-step meeting and I got a hold of a counselor and I got a sponsor. And at that moment, I knew that I had to make me my priority or that abusive brain chatter was going to kill me. Mm-hmm. My mother had a history of suicide. So it wasn't unlikely, depression runs in my family. So I knew that was a defining moment in my life and I took it.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I was just going to ask, when you get to that place, because I've been in that similar place, right? Like that, I just need one sign that there's, a reason for me to be here and, we can make a change. But I am curious, that didn't start that day, right? Like it sounds like that was your pivotal moment, or the catalyst for you to change your life. But what was the journey like up until that point that led to that day?
Oh, wow. Well, like I said, I came from a mother who was bipolar, and suicidal and tried to commit suicide many times. So my message, my abuse, I say my mother's abusive brain chatter caught up with me. And the message was when life gets tough, you check out.
Mm.
And so I checked out into food and I became a binger. I would just binge, and then I would diet. So if I wasn't, completely gaining 30, 40 pounds, I was losing 30 or 40 pounds. There was never anywhere in the middle. I had my mind, it was just, I had to keep my mind occupied. I also married somebody who was absolutely wrong for me. He himself was an addict, and a gambler and uh, a womanizer. And I thought that he was going to save me. I thought he was my savior. So he became my addiction. And I was really so addicted to him that, I kept thinking if I could just fix him and he could just be the man I love and the man I need, my life is going to be this pink cloud. So I set on this course of trying to change and fix this man who really, that was not my job. But that's all I thought I deserved, that was it. Yeah, I thought that's what you do because I had a mother that you had to fix. So I married him, and then I divorced him, and then I remarried him. And I know, yeah, talk about an addiction. And on that second go round, it was like I started to learn more about myself. I share this story in another podcast about going to the therapist and complaining about this man that I'm married to. He's cheating on me and he's this and he's never home and he's not available. And she just let me go on and on. And then she looked at me and she said, "So what are you doing with him?" And it was like, oh my God. Suddenly it was the light got shined on me. So easy to shine a light on someone else, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for me, that moment that I shined the light on me, I realized that I had to do the work.
Yeah.
And so that was part of my recovery, was being able to leave that marriage. And I was able to leave that marriage because I was able to get the support and help I needed.
Okay.
But but it's not easy. It's not, it's not just a straight path up.
Right, right. So it sounds like that pivotal moment happened, and then that's when these changes or these light bulbs started to go off for you in terms of other changes that you needed to make in your life.
Well, yes, I divorced my husband. This was before that pivotal moment.
Okay.
But I did divorce my husband, and living as a single parent was very, very difficult. I wasn't getting child support, and I didn't think that much of myself. I just knew I got out of my marriage, and that's what I knew I had to do. And so I was still broken. And that's what happened, that pivotal day. So what happened was I would just hide out in the food. And my one son went to live with my mother because I had checked out emotionally. And my other son was needing a lot of help because he was a child with ADHD. So I was overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. I was just overwhelmed. And that's when that was that pivotal moment when I said, okay, you got me on my knees now. What do I need to do?
Yeah. And I'm curious because, we were talking about this earlier, I refer to it as the inner critic, right? What you refer to as that brain chatter, that abusive brain chatter. And, when you look into it, right, a lot of those messages or a lot of that negativity are based on messages that whether they were audible or not audible from like your household, kids, your teachers, whatever it is, like those critical messages that, you grow up with thinking that, okay, this is how I think, this is what I believe about myself. And so you mentioned that, for you, it almost sounds like you seeing your mother's process. It's like how you picked it up. But were you specifically impacted with like negative messages throughout your childhood?
Well, yes, because my mother was, mentally ill. She did get, I just want to give the happy ending. She lived a very long and happy life. She did get help, and she was a wonderful mother, and I adored her, but she also had her own demons.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously those demons told her to kill herself. And when I asked her why she would try to kill herself, what was she thinking? She said she believed that we were better off with her dead than alive.
Mm.
So that to me, that's a real abusive brain chatter, right? So consequently, my mother had this horrible chatter going for most of her life. And her fixation then became fixing me and my sisters. That's what was important. So she always tried to put me on diets. She sent me to charm school. She told me how to sit. She took me to get my nails done. My mother always, if I was unhappy, she'd buy me new clothes so that the boys would like me. And those were the messages I got, that I was a home, that I was a project, that I wasn't okay the way I was, that I needed to be fixed, that I wasn't pretty, and that I certainly wasn't a lady, and certainly no man was going to want me. And so I got all of these messages as a young child, and she didn't mean to give me those messages. And I think you talked, I think maybe that's a point that you were raising, is that without meaning to, our parents give us these messages. My mother would have, like I said, she would have killed herself rather than hurt me, but she did, unknowingly, wanting me to be better, wanting me to live up to her standards. She gave me a bully.
Yeah.
She gave me a bully, and I grew up with a bully in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this therapist that talks about the challenges that we have are really internal, right? And mental. And it stems from this belief of I am not enough. And that I am not enoughness, man, it can do damage. Even if you are outwardly, successful, or outwardly you have all the stuff, like it's what's happening in between, your two lobes that is the most critical and the most damaging at times. So, you get to this place where, you've grown up with that mindset of I'm not enough. I need to be fixed. I'm not worthy of love the way that I am. It sounds like you got into a marriage that just reiterated that or magnified that for you. And then one day you decided, this was it. Like, I need help, I need support, and you headed down that path. So as you've been on this journey of recovery, of healing, and of transformation, what have you noticed, or what has shifted for you specifically regarding how you see yourself and, the messages that you give to yourself now?
Oh, wow. Well, a part of my book and part of the talk is that we have to first be aware of what's going on in our head and be honest about it. And two, we have to believe that we can change it, and that there's a higher self within us that can change us and that can give us the love and support we need. And C, this speaks to your question, is we had to challenge our core beliefs. And so I set about doing that. I mean, the first thing I did, in 12-step programs, you do amends. And I needed to make an amends to myself. I needed to say, wow, I really treated you poorly. Look at the things I've said to you. Look at the way I've let you live. Look at how I've let you isolate. I give the symptoms of an emotional bully is that of emotional abuse, excuse me. The symptoms of emotional abuse are bullying, which I did. I bullied myself. It's sabotaging. It's gaslighting. It's shaming. It's lecturing. And it's commenting on your looks. So when somebody's involved with an emotional abuser, that's how they get them. They gaslight them. Oh, I don't mean that. You're taking it wrong. And, you're so dumb. You're so stupid, and those are the things that an emotional bully does to keep you down. And especially belittling your appearance. That's, you're so ugly, you're so fat, you're whatever. Those were what I was doing to myself. So what I realized was that I was emotionally abusing myself, and that had to stop. And that was like step one. It was like, I don't get to say mean things to myself anymore. I thought of myself as a separate person. It's like Jacquie doesn't get to say mean things to Jacquie anymore. So you have to find a new, kinder way. Yeah. And that was where the spiritual part comes in, that belief part. I needed to find a kinder, softer, gentler voice that I could trust. Mm-hmm. And that came from something inside of me or outside of me. That wasn't me. I couldn't trust me. So I relied on my higher power, and I would do journaling. I love this process where I write a Dear God letter. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a lot of those letters. It was Dear God, and then I let my pen go, and then I would wait, and I'd write back, Dear Jacquie. And it would just flow, the loving, kind words that I had never heard before. I mean, that's what used to amaze me. I'd go back and I'd read it and I'd go, who is this talking? I've never heard this kind. I'm with you. I'm there. You've got this. We're doing, all of this love and support would come through my journaling. So, I did it. I prayed, I journaled, I meditated, I shared it. I took my inventory. I learned to stay on my side of the street. Because that was another addiction that I had, like being there, trying to fix my husband is really being on someone else's side of the street, right?
I call it savior syndrome.
Exactly. Yes. Oh my God. The cape I wore, I was the good one, and that meant he had to be the bad one. Well, that just doesn't sit with me anymore. Right. I'm not the good one and somebody else is the bad one. I'm who I choose to be. They're who they choose to be.
Right. And oftentimes they're simply a reflection of who we are or who we're being in that moment and in that space.
But yeah, we'll say more about that.
Through my journey and through, my process of transformation, my most broken moments, when I look back from this space, I could see that there was so much of the way that people were treating me or the way that people were showing up that I was already doing to myself. Like things that were happening externally were absolute reflections of what was already happening inside of me or what I believed that I was deserving of or worthy of. So, I always say, like, if your life is not where you want it to be, if your external environment isn't in the space, I will always challenge you to assess, well, what are you thinking? What are you believing? What are the thoughts that are running through your head? Because likely you are creating that situation in that environment. Now, that's not to say that, people being abusive or people treating you badly, that's your fault by any means. But there are parts of us that attract certain parts of other people. And, sometimes they serve as mirrors, good, bad, or indifferent. And so It's an opportunity for us to really look at, okay, if I was attracted to this person, or if I've, welcomed this person into my inner circle and this is how they're treating me, okay, yes, that's bad. And there's something about me or there's something within me that still believes that this is what I'm deserving of.
Very well said, Sabine. Yes, absolutely. It's the shadow side of us sometimes, and I had such a need to be good because I didn't have any sense of self at all. That, of course, having somebody bad to reflect off of was gonna make me feel good. Mm-hmm. I call it taking hostages. And it really is. That's kind of what I did with my first marriage, is that I took him hostage. I needed him to complete me. Because I didn't feel complete enough. And whenever that happens, we're gonna pick a broken piece, right? Because broken people pick broken people. Yep. I mean, in all my years of sponsoring and coaching and all of that, I've never seen somebody who's, a very high functioning, healthy person staying too long with a broken person.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. And so I had to rise. I agree with you. That's exactly what I knew, is that I had to rise. I had to keep my eye off of other people and keep my eye on myself. And once I learned to do that, I learned to set really good boundaries. That was the other thing I had to do, right? I had to say, that's not going to work for me. No, I'm not going to be treated that way. That may have worked in my past marriage. That doesn't work for me today. Yeah. And the more, in fact, when people are going through relationships, I always say it's not a bad thing to go through a few of them. You may have to, because each one teaches you something a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely.
And I did that. I would find another relationship, and there was still something in there that I was picking and choosing, and okay, that's not right. I have to discard that. I have to move on to the next one, until I was finally able to be in a healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. And now I'm in a healthy relationship with somebody who's very healthy and treats me loving and kind. And, I can say what I need to say. And he appreciates who I am and who I'm becoming. And at 69 years old, I'm still evolving. I mean, I'm just blown away at my life. When people always say to me, wow, you're like the Energizer Bunny Rabbit. I can't believe how much you're doing. You're a life coach, you're speaking, you're writing. And I say to them, it's because I started at 42. It's because that's really when I started my life. So I'm not really that old.
Yeah.
I'm 27 years old. I'm acting like a 27-year-old would. Right.
And I love that. I really do love that, Jackie, because, oftentimes we can go through periods of our lives, really stuck in a specific mode of being. And, you being able to make that shift at 42, I hope those who are listening realize that, they always say it's never too late, right? This journey of transformation is an ongoing one, right? Until we take our last breath. But certainly that it proves that nothing is absolute, right? No matter where you are today, no matter what has happened at any given moment, you can make the decision to change and to shift and transform into that next level of yourself. And it doesn't have to be when, you're 18 and you've graduated from high school, or when you're in your 20s, or when you're in your 30s. At any given moment, we have this beautiful opportunity to say, hey, I want my life to look different, and start taking actions towards that. Now, I know it doesn't happen overnight, right? I know it's a process, but I'm curious because you mentioned earlier, the prayer, the journaling, the meditation, the things that you started to incorporate in your day-to-day to, help you with your transition and your transformation. What are some of the things that you are doing today, or are you still doing those same things today to help you continue in your path?
Yes. I mean, this is something that's so important for you to say. And I really like that, Sabine, that, letting people know that this isn't an easy journey. I mean, people look at my life and they say, God, you have such a wonderful, blessed life. They have no idea what my life was before. My friends who knew me before say, oh my God, I have never seen such transformation. You are an amazing role model, because I really did do the work, but it wasn't easy. Mm-hmm. And I learned that message from my sister. I used to just really admire her, and it looked like she had it down. It looked like she somehow got through our childhood unscathed. That's the way it felt to me. It's like, oh my God, I got this trauma. My older sister got this trauma. My younger sister got this trauma. She seems to be skating through life. And I asked her, how did you do that? Because she's an amazing person. And she says, I work really hard at my life. I've got journals, from dating back from when I was 18, or from even my diary. I do the work. I exercise. Do you think I feel like getting dressed and going to the gym? No, who does? But I do the work. I take the classes, I take the workshops, I get the help. I do work on a daily basis. She reads the uplifting meditations. She goes to yoga. She's now in her 70s and she just became a yoga instructor. So again, she was like my role model. And I've told her that many times. It's like, I used to think it was really easy. And then when you told me the truth, it was like, okay. And I think what you said about you have to make a decision to do that was real important. I made a decision that what she had, I want to do that. And I was willing then to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of 12-step work anyway, is you make a decision and then you have to be willing to do the work. Most days I just write my gratitudes. I think gratitudes are probably the most number one step. People listening, if your life is not working for you, the number one thing you can do to start feeling better very quickly is to start doing 5 to 10 gratitudes a day. And that's not so that you manifest it. It's about putting perspective on your life. Because when you're in abusive brain chatter and when you're depressed, everything looks awful. The perspective is always and never. I'll never meet anyone. I always do this. I'm always going to be an overeater. I'm never going to have the job I want. But when you do gratitude, suddenly it's like, oh, wait a minute. Here's what's going on in my life. Yeah, today I got up and wow, I live in a beautiful place. And, I've got money to pay my rent. And look at my cat. My cat loves me. I love my cat. So I have love in my life.
I totally agree with you. I remember when I was in my darkest place, someone I used to work with, she challenged me to every day write a list of 25 things that I was grateful for. And this was when I was like in my deepest pit. And you're right. There's something transformative that happens spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you name it. And it begins to shift you from being the victim to your life to feeling empowered, to feeling to seeing and experiencing the abundance and the blessings that you actually have surrounding you. So I love that you start and you focus with, what am I grateful for? I used to be real good about it. Like I do the gratitude in the morning and then do the gratitude at night. But then, life happens. But as we're talking about this, it's a good reminder.
Absolutely. And, for me, I was fortunate enough to have a 12-step program. And that's, to me, I continue to go to meetings. It's been 26 years, 27, 30, I don't even know how many years. And people always say, why do you do that? And I say, well, because I like to hear recovery. I like to be around people who are sharing truth and sharing their recovery. And that's part of my process, is keeping myself uplifted. They say, if you're coasting, you're going downhill. So, I'm always doing work. I always have to be looking ahead and taking some action.
Yeah. And so you mentioned gratitude as a practice, in addition to the journaling and the meditating and the prayer that you maintain to this day. Is there anything else that you have incorporated through, either your own coaching framework or strategies that you'd be willing to share with the audience on something that they can just, begin to do, whether now or think through to journal?
There's many one day at a time kind of books out there, meditation books that each day you flip through the book and it gives you a topic. Those are wonderful. I keep one by my bed. In fact, I have several here in my office. And so when I'm down, it's about keeping myself positive. The next thing is be aware of that brain chatter. If your brain chatter is telling you something that if you hear it going towards, you're not good, oh, I'll never get that job, or, oh, I'm afraid, or whatever. You really literally have to challenge it. You have to step back and say, okay, really, is that the truth? Am I really not going to get a job? Are those people who are working really smarter than me? And really challenge that. Get a mentor, follow somebody, read inspirational books of people who have done it, take action. And baby steps are so important. Pick reasonable, attainable goals, but always keep moving towards a goal. but just make it within reach, because they've proven that your brain produces dopamine when you've reached that goal. So my goal, I mean, this is my goal when I used to not exercise at all, nothing at all. And my sister is the one who taught me this. She said, well, tomorrow, put on your tennis shoes. And just for this week, just put on your tennis shoes. You don't have to go for a walk, just lace them up. Well, of course, once your tennis shoes are laced and they feel so good on your feet, you kind of feel like maybe taking a walk around the block. That's how I went those 26 years. I just kept building on small baby steps. The other thing that I do in my spiritual practice is a technique I learned in my life coaching school at Life Purpose Institute, was really examining those agreements that I made with my family. I started with my mother. I made an agreement with my mother that I would be her project to keep her alive. You know, she needed a project, and I agreed to be that project, and I agreed to let her fix me. And I agreed to not breathe, which is so funny that I had asthma for most of my young life. I agreed not to breathe so she could breathe, because, you know, when she tried to kill herself, I gasped, you know. So I actually just tore up that agreement with her and said, you know, Mom, I think it's time I give you back your life. You lived it your way, and whatever bully you got from your mother was your job to do. I'm giving you back your bully. I'm giving you back your abusive brain chatter. I love you with all my heart. I forgive you. And, you know, she was dead at the time, and she still is, obviously. But, you know, it was like I could say that. I could say, yeah, I set you free, and I set myself free. Mm-hmm. And that's some real deep spiritual work. And I think that's really, really very healing.
Agreed. So I'm curious to hear about your process. At what point did you find yourself really shifting and starting to forgive yourself from that genuine place?
You know, it was fairly quickly, because I knew that that's what was stopping me. I first had to really come clean. I had to be honest with who I was and my motivations. I, again, thought of myself as a good person, but I sometimes had motivations, people-pleasing motivations. And you know about people-pleasing. Those people are the most manipulative people in the world, right? It's like we are so controlling because we act a certain way so that you'll like us. Well, that's very, very controlling. So I had to really call myself on all my stuff. First, I had to lay it out there. Like I said, aware. I had to become aware. I had to lay it all out there and say, wow, look at that. You are people pleasing here. You are there. You know, you are here. This is about low self-esteem. This is about feeling not good enough. And just, you know, look at it very neutrally. It was like a puzzle. You know, if you've ever worked a jigsaw puzzle, you know, you just kind of, you come around the side, you build the side up, and then these pieces start kind of fitting in. And I was very gentle with myself on that process. I realized just because I was looking at myself didn't mean I got to beat myself up. It was like, no, you are looking at yourself in terms of trying to figure out where this fits in the puzzle of your life. Does this piece fit in this puzzle? It's like if two puzzles were mashed together, and I want to build the one that's the beautiful flowers, right? And yet I find one that's all dark ocean, and I pick up a piece and I say, do I want this in my beautiful flowerscape? No, this piece just doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't fit in my puzzle. So I'm going to put it aside. But I have to be able to look and see it honestly and see that it is green or dark brown or whatever. That's what I had to do in my life. I had to stop and I had to say, all right, Jackie, come on. Who are you really? And as I started to get real, and again, with the mentor, I urge people, whether it's a church member, a life coach, a spiritual coach, whatever it is, it's really important to do that with somebody, to be honest about yourself, because that way you can do it without your brain chatter going. Mm-hmm. You know, there were times where I'd say, oh, no, I'm really this and that. And fortunately in program, I had a loving sponsor who would say, wait a minute, that's not a bad quality. What, you know, wait a minute. No, don't throw that out. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And figuring out why I was doing stuff, you know, a lot of times our abusive brain chatter is really trying to protect us. It sounds really weird that this bully, but when you know of a bully, he's like, I'm doing it for your own good. Well, he really believes that. Well, so does your abusive brain chatter. And if you ignore it and you don't really look at those pieces of your puzzle, then it's going to start getting it. I always make it like it's like a little kid kind of, pulling on your apron. Listen to me. This is dangerous. You really shouldn't try anything because you're really not smart enough. And it says that because it doesn't want you to fail.
Yeah.
So you have to give it a place to express itself. So that was the next part of my process is I gave it all a place to express itself, my abusive chatter, everything. Then once I really saw what it was and I said, okay, I don't need these pieces anymore, I could say to myself, I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry I hung on to them for so long. I'm so sorry that I did that. I know it must have been painful for you. And it was very painful when I really looked at how I treated myself and hid from the world and isolated. It was so painful. It was I could cry thinking about it. Yeah. And so I had to forgive myself for that because I didn't do that on purpose. My bully wasn't there. He was just trying to get some attention from me. And I was just doing everything I could to ignore it. That was the other part of my spiritual journey. Once I got in touch with my bully, I had a more powerful, loving power that could say to that bully, all right, okay, I got this. Don't worry. She's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. She can take care of herself. Watch. She can get up. She can exercise. She can meditate. Don't worry about that. And that's what I needed. Jackie couldn't do that. Right. This power greater than me could do that. Yeah. And it did.
Yeah. And I think you make a good point here that, learning self-compassion or how to stay in that place of showing yourself compassion, showing yourself grace, starting with you first so that you can be compassionate and show others grace. I talk to people all the time, and that seems to be the hardest thing for people to learn how to do is to show themselves grace, or give themselves that space. So it sounds like you are very much in tune with that. And another thing that you mentioned that I want to highlight is, we are so multidimensional as human beings that, no matter how many books we read, right? Or no matter how many affirmations we speak out loud or how many meditations, we are whole beings. And that's the mental, that's the physical, that's the spiritual. It's all of it. And so, no one who I've spoken with, at least, who has gone through major transformation from traumatic events or even non-traumatic events has been able to just lean on one course to get to, that other side. It's been, I got to explore all the parts of me in order for me to, be able to move forward. So I love that you incorporate, not just the psychology of it, but also the spiritual side of it. And the human side. We're that special as humans that we have these multiple pieces of us that need healing, depending on our childhood situations, but also that can come through and help support us when other parts of us are weaker.
Exactly. The other thing I just want to say that I don't want to make it simplistic because, again, this has been my 30-year journey. Mm-hmm. If you're depressed and you have mental health issues, get help. I mean, this might be simplistic, but if you have suicidal thoughts, get help. That's your bully. Get help challenging your bully. There is a more loving and kind space for you to live in, and you don't have to live that way. And I'm not a therapist or a doctor, but I just want to make that caveat as well, that sometimes people need more help. Yeah. But what I did is I explored it all. I explored the drugs, the antidepressants, the therapy, I did whatever it was going to take me to lift myself up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really great point. Once you're on the other side of something, right, it's so easy to look back and be like, oh yeah, you just do this and move forward. And, if that were true when we were in it, we would have
Right.
been okay. So thank you for reiterating that. It is very important. If you are on in your valley right now, or in that low place, that you do try all the things. Try all the things. If anything, I want this to be encouragement for you, that no matter how low you are, there is an opportunity to move to the other side. You have to figure out what it is that works best for you and your particular journey. So as we look to wrap up here, Jackie, I just have a couple final questions for you. Given all that you've been through, given all that you've experienced, and the life that you are living now, which appears to be a life of freedom, a life of strength,
Mm-hmm.
a life of love, self-love towards yourself, and certainly love for others. If you could go back to little Jackie that, thought she needed to be fixed, and you could give her, some piece of advice to help her move along in her journey, knowing what you know now, what might you share with her?
Mm, yeah, I thought about this. And I think what I would say to her is that there is a reason for everything. This is what I've learned now as Jackie now, is that there was a reason for all of my pain. There was a reason I was able to summit the mountain. There was a reason why I was able to overcome all of this. That's because we're not all immune to pain. When we get older, people aren't immune to pain. And I would say to her, Jackie, your life purpose is to be the lighthouse, is to be the lamp, the guiding post for other people. And so just, you will take these experiences, you will grow and you will learn, and then you will use them to help others. And that's what I feel I've done.
I love that. Thank you so much. So as we're wrapping up here, Jackie, I'm sure the listeners at this point are wondering, like, how do we get in contact with her?
Right now, I really want to announce this workshop that I'm doing for nurses. Right now, I think nurses are really a troubled population. They're walking around with a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of overwhelm, a lot being burnt out. So I'm doing a 4-hour retreat, mini retreat, spiritual retreat for nurses. It's free. And if any nurse is burnt out, overwhelmed, a call to me is absolutely free. So anyway, if anybody wants a free consultation or wants to know what I have, what I'm about, I'm putting together some spiritual retreats and things like that. They can go to my website, which is Jacquie Elliott, JacquieElliottClc.com.
Okay, awesome. That website is definitely included in the show notes, so be sure to check out Jackie and check out the retreats. And if you do know of a nurse, or if you yourself are a nurse and you are feeling the pains of this and the burdens of this past year, certainly reach out to Jackie. In addition to your website, Jackie, as far as social media goes, is there one site or one platform that you hang out at the most?
Yeah, well, I'm usually at Facebook, Jacquie Elliott CLC,
Okay,
or
awesome.
Jacquie Elliott Certified Life Coach. But yeah, like me, and I'll, periodically I post things, and I certainly let people know about the workshops and free workshops I have going on.
Okay, great. So we will include Jackie's handle in the show notes as well. And as we look to wrap up here, Jackie, thank you so much for sharing your story and your vulnerability. Thank you for giving additional language to that internal bully that many of us, carry around well into our adulthoods. As we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts? Anything that you want to share as far as encouragement to the audience?
Yeah, well, that's why I call it the ABCs. If you can just remember that, A is aware, B is believe, and C, challenge your core beliefs. So when your head starts spinning like a tornado, you know that you're in your head, you're not in your heart, and you have to say ABC, ABC. Okay, I'm aware. I need to believe, I need to get down into my heart, and I need to actually stand up to that bully and challenge my core belief.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And with that, we will end and see you next week. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you, Sabine.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. I hope you were able to grab a few nuggets and some action items that you can begin implementing this week. I'll be back next week with some more actionable tips to help you along your journey of transition, change, and transformation. In the meantime, please be sure to subscribe and leave a comment on the platform of your choosing. And if you really enjoyed this content, go ahead and share it with your network. Share it with a friend, a family member, whoever it is you know that might benefit from the information that was shared today. Until next time, have a wonderful and purposeful week.